All right, I think we're live. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. If anyone in the chat can hear me, just push 1. All right, got a confirmation from the chat. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 423. Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. If you want to engage in the discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. All right, let me drop the link. If you're trying to get into IT for the first time, on the entry level, we do offer IT mentorship. If you're trying to transition from one role to another, we do offer IT coaching. If you have questions about your resume or salary negotiations and wages, we do offer advice in those areas as well. If you are in the tri-state area and you're looking for IT contracts, Nicole 11 does have Rex on the table. All right. I don't see many people hitting the like button. When we get 10 likes, then we'll begin. All right. Let me start building up the docket right now. Just give me a few seconds. Grab this one. Drop this one in there as well. All right, I'll drop the last one in there. Hey, what's going on, Complex?
What it do, Mike?
I'm chilling, man.
What's up, man? Just over here, just posted up, chilling with my little one, man.
All right. Let me just grab this. Let's see. I have one item I need to add to the docket. All right, this is it right here. This works. All right, let's get started, man. So I wanted to have this discussion. We had went over this article, I think a few weeks ago, on space and technology, and it was talking about how we're moving to a sort of paradigm where you have this low code, no code for IoT development. And basically you have like a jigsaw puzzle of, or like a goldfish sort of perspective for programming, where even your most lowest level of literacy can actually write code through this program or through this platform. And it made me think that we should probably do a live stream on this. We should probably talk about this openly, because in previous live streams we talked about having to need to know Python and JavaScript and things like that. And that stuff is still relevant for like different areas of development on different platforms, IoT platforms, and blockchain and Android and iOS and things of that nature. You still need to know those things. But that being said, low code, no code has become this new sort of buzzword for 2019, 2020, where you have very little experience in the most basic and fundamental areas of development for application development. And so I want to go through these articles real quick. And we'll discuss it openly at the end. All right, just give me a second. Let me share my screen real quick. All right, this one is from businessinsider.com. These 7 programming skills can increase your salary by thousands, according to the mega popular developer hub Stack Overflow. All right, let me expand this out. As the year comes to an end, it's a time to reflect on your career and see where you'd like to go grow. It turns out that there are certain skills in tech that can help you increase your salary by thousands, according to data from the popular developer quality question and answer site Stack Overflow, which has over 50 million unique visitors each month. An annual Stack Overflow survey for developers around the world asks about salary, education, work experience, and what technologies they use. Using this data, the Stack Overflow team estimated by how much certain tech skills increase developers' average salaries. From the data, the Stack Overflow team identified 7 skills that were statistically significant in increasing people's salaries the most, which it shared with Business Insider. The numbers Stack Overflow disclosed are based on the assumption that the developer in question has 5 years of work experience and a bachelor's degree in the US. We can see how much do these different technologies move people's salaries up and down? How much more or in less are they making relative to each other? Julia Silge, a Stack Overflow data scientist, told Business Insider. Silge said none of these skills are especially well suited for beginners. They are more specialized. Silge also said developers may see a different salary experience depending on their work experience. Salary increase depending on their work experience. For example, a developer with more experience would see a bigger increase, she said. These are tools for highly expert work, Silge said. People who are using these tools are people who are largely experienced, not at the beginning of these careers, but a little further on. Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is a search and analytics engine for large amounts of data. It's an open source project, meaning it's free for anyone to use, download, or modify. Today, Elastic maintains the project and builds commercial features to support it. React. React is a JavaScript library used for programming web and mobile applications. Developers use it to design how websites and apps look and how people interact with it. It's an open source project that started at Facebook, where it was used for popular features like the like button and for managing ads. Today, React, which has a huge community contributing to it, underpins some of the most popular features on apps like Twitter, Pinterest, Asana, Uber, and Airbnb. React is a bit of an outlier as it is explicitly a web technology, but it is really popular. And important web technology that has had a huge impact over the past few years. Apache Spark. Apache Spark is an open source project that's used for processing and analyzing large amounts of complicated data. Developers use it because it's fast, can be run anywhere, and works with popular programming languages like Python and Java. Today, more and more people are talking about Spark as a way to deal with big data and deal with it and make decisions with it, Silge said. Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, or Google Cloud Platform. More companies than ever are moving to the cloud more often, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud. As a result, knowing how to move and write applications to the cloud is in high demand. These cloud skills are also often useful in DevOps, the field in combining software development and operations to help streamline the process of production. We see the cloud platforms being associated with higher pay. So it said, whether they are working in DevOps or regular web developers, people who have the ability to work with cloud platforms have an advantage in the hiring market today. The ability to deploy code to cloud platforms is a valuable skill that we can see more and more. Go. Go is an open source programming language that started at Google and is specifically optimized for writing large-scale software. It's also similar to the programming language C, which is often used for writing operating systems. Go is one of the fastest growing programming languages in terms of usage, according to GitHub. Redis. Redis is a popular open source database. The startup Redis Labs built builds features for Redis as well as commercial features that support it. According to Stack Overflow Developer Survey, Redis is the most loved database. Redis is a tool that just works. So said, people who are involved in that kind of work are experienced engineers working on a specialized path. Scala. Scala is a programming language that is often used in big data applications. It was created in 2003 and can be mixed and matched with the widely used programming language Java. People using it are often data engineers who are in high demand and earn an average salary of $127,846 according to Indeed. Data engineers are hard to hire. So it said this is a particular technology that we see associated with that. So I want to go over these real quick, and maybe I'll get Complex's input on this. You may know a thing or two on this. So Elasticsearch is something that we use in something called Elk. So Elk is Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, which is a open source platform that can be utilized in the security world for what we call SIEM, SIEM, Security Incident Events Manager. And what this does is it collects logs and allows you to micro-analyze a lot of the logs based on the queries that are written within the platform itself that you may write in the platform itself. So it makes a very good platform for DevOps and for security analytics. React, like the article said, this can be used to build social media platforms. So when Black people talk about getting off of YouTube and some other platforms, you may very well need to learn React as a way to build your next platform. If it works for Facebook, it's got to work for you as well, like the article says. So I would definitely keep that in mind if you're talking about building your own platform.
Yeah, the low code, no code approach is basically it's plug and play.
Yep.
You know, you're basically taking patches of pre-written code that are written to do a function, and you're just basically putting it together like a puzzle. So this actually kind of lowers the barrier of entry, so to speak, because it doesn't. What it allows for is a working understanding of language, not necessarily like mastering it or anything like that. But you could basically be plugging and playing certain things, and then if you need to make like a slight alteration due to just as a customized measure, then you could actually go and dig into some resources to see how to change this one particular line of code, how to write it, with a working understanding of how to write the code. This would just give you the details on, okay, so if you're going to put, patch A and patch B together, and you need patch C to be able to connect to both in this way, then go here and, write this command or something like that. And with the working understanding, you'll know where to go and how to place the code in there. So this really does like lower the barrier. It's kind of like, and I think, Mike, that discussion that you're referencing from a few weeks ago, we kind of made the equivalent to like web development. Like when everything went PHP, and then you started getting a proliferation of like Joomlas, WordPress. I'm trying to think of some of the other web development platforms where it basically removed the need to know how to code to a large extent. When we went to like the Web 2.0, SQL, PHP, database-driven websites, you didn't really have to code anymore. Not really. You might do it in the CSS, like the style sheet, when you're designing the website and stuff like that. So that code, yeah, but like to actually get in there and code SQL or PHP or something like that, kind of eliminated the need to do that.
Yeah. The next one they mentioned is Apache Spark. So Apache Spark is relatively new, sort of a project that came out of the open source community, and it's a plane that happens in between the user and the database itself that is going to be processing and analyzing large amounts of complicated data from. So this can be useful if you're trying to, remain cost efficient for developing, big scaling data analytics engines. That this would be it. This would be how you would go about it, which is Apache Spark. So you would use this to interface into something like an S3 bucket, what they call it on AWS. So you can dump all your data into a bucket, but you would use something like Apache Spark to actually interface into that bucket to, to query data that's dumped into there. We've talked about Azure, AWS many times before, and GCP. That goes without saying. If you're going to work at this level, you got to understand cloud. So Go is something that the article mentions as a platform used for writing large scales of software. So you're talking about something like a SAP or something like that. You would use this platform for that. I don't foresee many people who come here doing that, but Go is actually used for that very reason. So. And then they mentioned Redis, right? So Redis would be something that you would use with something like Apache Spark. So Redis is that open source database platform. Everybody's pretty familiar with SQL and Couch or things like that. But Redis is that next level open source database. And I think that this is going to catch on even more when you start talking about IoT, Internet of Things, industrial IoT, IoT, and AIoT, like Xiaomi was mentioning the other day in their news article about going to like a artificial intelligence of things, AIoT. So you would need something that's going to collect a lot of this data that's going to be generated at the edge. Edge is the layer of technology that sits in between the device and the cloud. Edge connects to the cloud, edge connects to the device. It's that medium layer. You're going to need something like a Redis to actually function at that edge layer to do a lot of the processing before you send it straight up to the cloud. So. And then you have Scala. I think it's the last one. Yeah, Scala is something I've heard about before. I don't work with it, but I have seen it, get tossed around in sort of developer spaces. Big data applications, so things like, things like that generate a lot of data is like financial institutions, manufacturing, because they generate a lot of data as well because a lot of the processing that goes on there. Same thing with, same thing with retail. Retail generates lots and lots and lots of data. That's all it does. It's one big data lake, for lack of a better term, or data ocean for that matter, because there's so many moving things happening at the same time. People walking in, people walking out, people picking up things, people putting things down, people paying for things, people returning things, people liking things, adding it to their cart, so on and so forth. You need, in order to harness all of that data, you need something like Scala to actually work with. So very important. I think this article is trying to bang on the money with a lot of its points. Yeah, Stack Overflow is a very good platform that everybody should actually be registered to. Has helped me over the years greatly. So let me bring the next person in. All right. All right, let's go into dev. Modern C++ and introduction. This is actually pretty interesting. Most people think that they know C++, which is used in production level as they are taught C++ in their syllabus of their university or college, but they mostly do not know what standard C++ they are taught. They are taught C++ 89, for example, C-Front 2.0. Students are told to use Turbo C++ as IDE to learn C++ in university because it is or was a great IDE in its age. As the academic syllabus takes a lot of time to change and people don't know that it is outdated, mostly trend to learn old coding styles and deprecated features. This is very true. So what is C++? Modern C++ stands for C++ that is based on C++ 11, C++ 14, and C++ 17, C++ 20, and future versions. With C++ 11, we had a revolution that revolutions became with C++ 14 and will become with C++ 17 to an evolution. An overview of the timeline of C++ features, which makes my point clear. Modern C++ not only enhances the usability of the C++ itself, but the modification of the auto keyword semantics gives more confidence in manipulating extremely complex template types. At the same time, a lot of enhancements have been made to the language at runtime. The emergence of Lambda expressions has made C++ have the closure feature of Lambda expressions, the emergence of Lambda expressions has made C++ have the closure of features of anonymous functions, which is almost in modern programming languages, such as Python, Swift, etc. It has become commonplace, and the emergence of R-value references has solved the problem of temporary object efficiency that C++ has long been criticized for. So what they're saying here is that C++ is catching up to where your modern languages like Python and Swift have basically been great at. Deprecated features, the string literal constant is no longer allowed to be assigned to a character asterisk. If you need to assign initialize a character with a string literal constant, you should use constant character asterisk or auto. So they showed the code right here. C++ 98, exception description, unexpected handler, and set unexpected and other related features are deprecated and should use no except. I'm not going to go over all of this, but actually, that's the end of the article. But basically, they're trying to introduce you into C++. I don't think that everybody needs to learn every single language. I think you need to find something that you're comfortable with and go from there. Managing Europe, what's going on? Welcome to the panel.
Is he muted?
Hey, yeah, sorry about that. I was muted.
Oh, okay. Hey, how's it going, man?
It was
good, man. How are you guys?
Chilling, man. Chilling.
Good. Yeah, I'm really happy you guys did the low code, no code presentation here. I think a lot of guys out there, kind of hit the ground running. And like how you just mentioned in the C++ article, some of the stuff they're teaching even at the universities is old stuff, is antiquated, is stuff that they're not going to see on the job market. And a lot of the app development has a lot of templates in it now, a lot more stuff that they can leverage. Also AI, as far as making some of the object-oriented decisions, as far as like how they set up the back end, what the system's actually going to look like. A lot of the stuff AI can give you like helpful hints along the way. So a lot of the stuff that they're learning, they're going to have to relearn and reteach themselves when they actually get boots on the ground. So I think it's great. And I think this is really part of the wave of the future, like how they're going to be having new apps and new platforms to develop.
Yep.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned the AI aspect and all of this. Could you kind of go into just a little more detail? I think there's like a common perception, especially kind of in these spaces here, you know, that AI is just like it's like this pervasive sort of, you know, technology that's going to just sort of think for society.
Right.
But you know, you had a very interesting angle with regards to the application of AI and coding. Like what did you mean by what you just said?
So like a lot of times you may have like a lower skill developer and they may be setting up like a back end, like a SQL back end or like a back end of just like a e-commerce site or something like that. And they may use like a redundant code or code that is going to be harder if you pass it on to another developer, or code that's going to make it hard for us to like, if they don't like set a primary key or like a unique identifier for like each specific unit that we're shipping or each specific customer, then the AI can kind of, and they can see like as you're developing, as you're building that out in the platform, and they can basically say like, hey, you should add in a unique key, or you should maybe, this is how you want to link these tables, or you forgot about this, or, you know, do a right join instead of left join or inner join. Like it can kind of give you suggestions when you're actually looking at or developing reports or developing sites, things of that nature. And so I think like that's going to really, like how you said earlier, lower the bar, lower the barrier of entry. If you know, have some general understanding of code. And also AI in the white collar spaces as well. I think we talk about a lot in the blue collar spaces, but AI is also going to be in white collar soon.
Let me get to this next article from Tech Republic. Developers weigh in on why Rust is so hot. Oh man, this is so small. All right, Rust has no right to be as sexy as it is. After all, it's a low-level programming language that totes safety is our #1 priority, as if it were an airline or something. Even so, Rust has rocketed to the top of the programming language popularity chart, sitting just outside of RedMonk's top 20 for the third quarter plot for 2019 at 21, leading RedMonk analyst Stephen O'Grady to write, for a systems language to continue its upward trajectory in this fashion suggests that some combination of the design, the language's community, and market demand is combining to have it outperform its natural expectations. While O'Grady identifies a few key selling points for Rust, Cliff Biffle's 2019 post goes one step further in illustrating why a C++ developer might fall in love with Rust. What C++ aspires to be, Biffle has spent years optimizing C++ code to run a complicated microcontroller graphics demo, giving years of optimization why futz with Rust. Because he said most of the common security reliability bugs we see in software today are a result of flaws in the C and C++ languages. Rust, as a safety-first language, promised to reduce or eliminate the bugs while delivering the performance of a true systems language. Interesting. Promised, sure. Delivered, absolutely. Biffle wrote, the Rust implementation is simpler, shorter in lines of code, faster and smaller in bytes of flash than my heavily optimized C++ version. And because it's almost entirely safe code, several types of bugs that I fought regularly, such as race conditions and dangling pointers, are now caught by the compiler. That's a pretty strong endorsement. That is interesting. Goes on to identify 4 other areas where Rust trumps C++. The Rust tools and library ecosystem are fantastic. Simply having a package manager is an incredibly important advance. when I'm writing C++, I'm thinking about undefined behavior and bugs the compiler won't catch. That's what we were talking about in the last article about C++ and the introduction. I am writing C++, when I'm writing Rust, I'm thinking instead about how to optimize things or add features. There is a very real cognitive load difference, and it makes me more productive. So what he's basically saying here is that instead of having to worry about instead of having to worry about the maintenance on the vehicle, Rust acts as a fuel injected system. So basically, it has anti-lock brakes, it has fuel injection, it has seat belts. No need to worry about all the other things. It actually has the ability to self-govern itself, whereas C++ does not. You have to do the self-governance there. That's where application security analysts come into play. They're the ones who oversee a lot of that stuff, a lot of the errors in code and things of that nature on that C and C++ level. Whereas in Rust, you don't really have that. It's all governed. Rust safety features such as balance checking have caught bugs and have not caused performance problems. The port revealed significant subtle bugs in C++ code when the Rust compiler wouldn't let me do certain things that turned out to be legitimately incorrect things to do. So again, governance is really key here with Rust as opposed to C++. So where C++ fails, Rust is actually pretty stout in those areas. I have never used Rust before. I have heard about people using Rust, but I've never used it personally. I just find it interesting now, that this is starting to come out. And I think at some point, I know C++ has had its evolution in some areas, but when you have things like Rust coming along that can do the same exact thing as C++, it kind of makes you wonder if it's worth going back to C++ if Rust can do all of this. A growing course of praise. In a conversation with OSO CTO Sam Scott, he commented on how Rust allows you to go deep in systems programming without getting lost. Rust feels like systems programming with guardrails. All the things I needed to do low-level systems programming, but with a lot of help to debug and to make the code safe, like the borrow checker and compiler. And then later on, tooling like Linter's Clippy, it had offered a lot of familiar aspects of functional and object-oriented programming, and just seemed to fit my mental model of how I wanted to build systems. So basically, how you visualize a function in programming in your head, Rust is going to guide you in that direction, which is what this statement is being said by this OSO CTO, Sam Scott. Whereas C++, you're kind of tight roping it from end to end. And, if you slip once, there's a high probability, that rope might end up either between your legs or you may fall all the way off, especially if you don't know your balance, right?
Exactly.
Developer David Barsky is no less effusive in an interview, calling out, among other things, the ways that Rust improves developer productivity. Cargo, the build tool and package manager, is one of the best build systems and package managers I've used. Rust also comes with excellent built-in documentation and great built-in unit integration and documentation testing. This, combined with Rust's superior performance for latent-sensitive network services, Rust's lack of runtime garbage collection results in almost non-existent tail latencies, noted Barsky. Make it a language worth getting to know. If you've wanted to experiment with a systems language but have shied away due to perceived complex or actual complexity, give Rust a try. It might be the open source upgrade on C++ you've been waiting for. So again, I have mentioned this earlier, but I've never used Rust before. I've heard of it being used before at different startups, but my opinion on this is that maybe it's time for us to move on from C++ and to move into something like Rust. If the article is actually accurate in what it's saying, I think it's grueling for people who are coming into computer science or coming into programming to really go down that rough path of, this really rickety programming language like C and C++, how deprecated they are, how old they are, how decrepit they are. It's kind of like trying to learn stick shift on a 3-speed Corolla or Tercel or something like that from the 1970s or 80s, man. It can be brutal, man. No power steering, no anti-lock brakes, clutch burning, nonstop, not air conditioning, but no window defrost and stuff like that. That stuff is, that's not fun, man. It's not fun to work to try to learn how to drive on an old car like that. So it shouldn't be fun on how to learn to program in in archaic languages like C and C++. Those languages are 40+ years old, if that. Anybody else have anything to add to this?
I completely agree. I think any IT organization worth their salt is going to be investing in the low code or no code space for exactly the things that you mentioned there. Like having the guardrails, having the complete car, and you can kind of hand it to your developers and not really worry about, having big catastrophic things happen. I looked up on Forbes. It said it's low code and no code industry is a $21.2 billion industry, or it will be by 2022. Which is a 40% annual growth rate year over year. So I think this is where we're going to be heading very soon.
Yeah, I think, based on this article and based on some of the conversations I've seen happen openly at meetups and stuff like that, I think Black people should start getting into Rust. One of the big problematic areas I see that most Black people have is they're coming from a non-technical background and they're getting into these boot camps, and then they're like, this is too difficult to learn. I just don't, feel like I'm really keeping up and things and so on and so forth. Because like the other article was saying that C++, there's the old variations of it in the intro to computer science has made it, they're teaching you the academic way, but then there's a practical way to do it in the real world. And there's a gap, a knowledge gap and an experience gap.
There's a huge gap.
Yeah, I was going to say huge, yeah.
Yeah, and it's causing people to be confused about which way they go with programming. And I think we could probably build a lot more programs if we start adopting more modern languages.
Exactly. And then I feel like it's going to start to empower the subject matter expert. Like if you give this like a low code app to like a truck driver or somebody like that knows their industry, that's an expert and like what's going on in the day to day, and then they're able to drag and drop and give some or develop some code or have like some automation piece to it. I think that's going to really change the industry in the future.
Yeah, definitely. To me, not even just a truck driver. What I find is that people who can speak more than one language can actually do the best at programming. Their brain just seems to function differently for that reason. They're able to absorb the lines of code and the syntaxes and so on and so forth really quickly, much more quickly than somebody like myself. I don't have a programming background. The most I've done is work with Bash and work with PowerShell. So that's in the IT world. Back in the day, maybe you might be able to remember this as well. We were siloed. Programmers programmed, and sysadmin guys, that's what they did. They were system administrators, network administrators. You never really had to program back then because you kind of had a resident programmer on tap that was a part of the team that was pretty much there for that very reason. He was an SMC.
Absolutely. There was no full stack developer, no concept of doing everything, wearing these multiple hats. Like you said, we're completely siloed. And it's interesting. It's kind of all coming together now, and you're going to have to do like a lot more stuff and be an expert in a lot of different other spaces. Yeah. And a little bit of background on me. And also I was like you were saying about the languages. I was originally I went to HBCU for computer science. I was on scholarship for a missile defense company. So they took us on like different places. When it was down in the South, we were in Atlanta. And they took us to Coca-Cola, they took us to Microsoft. And one thing that you said, Mike, that they also mentioned, some of the greatest developers are the people that can speak multiple languages and also people that do music as well.
Yeah.
I have a lot of music majors that come in knowing those, you know, different notes and, you know, treble clef, like all that, knowing that language, it can also be a huge help and this space as well. And I look at low code as like getting a new instrument or a new way to convey music, you know, the fact that, and we're going to open it up to a lot more people that, you know, didn't necessarily have those skills or people that had those roadblocks of going into, you know, these crappy boot camp courses that felt like they couldn't really get their foot in the door. And I feel like it's going to open up for a lot of people.
You know, imagine just 2 quick points to what you just mentioned there about the correlation between understanding music, right? And the ability, ability to like, if you know music, then have that translate over into understanding how to code from a quixotic standpoint, you know, because you understand, because music is a language, right? You write the note. Well, it used to be that way, but now it's more even software plugin. Like actually music software has kind of followed the same concept in what we're talking about when you really think about it.
Free loops,
yeah, Ableton, Pro Tools. This is all like mouse clicks and stuff like that, right? It's a user interface. It's no longer writing notations, or in this case, which would be the code or the language. It's no longer writing it onto a sheet, you know, or in a certain notation or script. It's no longer that. It's now software based largely. So I can see even from, and my background is actually, you know, to a large extent music. So, and I dealt with a lot of those softwares. So it's kind of like, I totally see where you're coming from with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my one of my systems engineers, the lead system engineer, was actually that. He went to school. He went to Berkeley College of Music, and he doesn't have a background in IT. His background is in music.
You know, Mike, even, you know, what's interesting, you mentioned Berkeley College of Music. The dude, Joe Bernard, the guy who runs BPS Space. Okay. All the code that he wrote he said this on his last video, actually, that he put out a few days ago. Because there was a shot where you saw his degree in the background. And he mentioned like how he kind of made like I guess he made like a little mistake or something. He was like, he goes, and he just basically mentioned that he's not like a software engineer by educational measures, right? He actually has a degree from Berkeley School of Music, same place you just mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, Berkeley puts out a lot of talent beyond music. They're involved in a lot of things. So I'm right down the street from it. So I see a lot of that going on.
I know Black people have a lot of musical gifts and talents too to offer, and it can cross over to the tech space. And I think it's important for people to know that.
I mean, we've talked about this many times on here that Black people should have been leading the tech revolution. I mean, in fact, we did hip hop as a science.
I was just about to go there.
We did hip hop as a science. You know, guys who can spit 16 bars, that's lines of code.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Mike had a whole position on it, man, as this being a form of algorithm or code.
Yeah, the algorithm is the 808.
I completely agree. It's genius what some of these guys are able to do, you know.
We should have been leading the tech revolution a long time ago, man. We had the opportunity to really just hold on to something that, you know, the rest of the world is actually dancing to. You know, hip hop has been instrumental in bridging cultural divides, man. You know, in political assemblies as well. You know, its contribution to the Cold War, where you saw a lot of Western Europeans who were being harassed by the Stasi. You know, they didn't like that sort of music. And today, even right now, I think Putin said he can't stand hip hop. Yeah, because hip hop played a significant role in cultural influence in Europe.
It's the counterculture.
Yeah,
Russian youth walking around with gold chains and shit.
Yeah, and shell-toe Adidas.
You know,
and you got Japanese in Japan. You know, they played a significant role there as well during the Cold War. You know, a lot of your breakdancing and
I was about to say, dude, Russia has some dope b-boy crews, man.
Oh, they're incredible, man. Incredible. Incredible. A lot of people don't realize, Black people's contribution to culture, man, in America, man. It spread worldwide.
Worldwide, it's insane.
Yeah. Before there was a worldwide internet, a worldwide web, or even social media for that matter, we had so many opportunities to really, grip, the sort of, this sort of emerging technology before there was a fourth industrial revolution. This was it, man. We were at the forefront of it, and we kind of just let it slip through our fingers, man. Somehow gangster rap took over and kind of destroyed it.
It's kind of like a case study, and not to get off topic, I know we got to cover this, but just a real quick note, it is sort of like it's kind of like a case study in cultural globalization, right? As a precursor to, say, like commercial globalization, industrial globalization, right? What preceded it was cultural globalization. And like, to think that hip hop was like the means to do it, man. You know what I mean? It's like, damn, ADOS created that. You know what I mean? It's like, well, let's just say, by a large extent, ADOS created that. So, again, I've always going to maintain that point that, no one can ever say that Black men never created nothing.
Right. And jazz and rock and roll while we're at it.
There's that part. You know what I mean?
If we're going back 30 years, we would definitely say that hip hop had so many other areas of activity, of human activity. The b-boying, the fashion, the language, the linguistics aspect behind it. There's a whole entire, and then you factor in, Newmark and Akai and all these companies who
Vestax.
Yeah, who had changed the way their equipment was designed so it can function with the culture itself, man.
I was just gonna say, that speaks to even like on the tech side of things, how hip hop was a technology driver. Digital turntables. You come up with like things like digital turntables. You have like whatchamacallit, you have like all your DJ software now.
Yep.
Right? You know what I mean? Yeah, so there we go. Serato and the other one. We mess with both of them. I prefer vinyl. I don't give a fuck. I'm not good at the software stuff. But hip hop was like the reason, like your modern day music tech sector even exists.
Even from an EQ standpoint, if you look at a lot of EQ presets,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
hip hop on it.
Yeah,
it's always meant to.
So hip hop was largely before we could. I think now we're really just, as we look at it in a totality, we see now like just how impactful it was. But I don't think at the time we were looking at the future industrial application of what was being done. Because now that we look at it, we say, damn, we can just run off all these softwares and music programs and all this stuff that we've used before. Yeah, and it's all natively created from hip hop, dude.
But it was also meritocracy based, because whoever had the best bars were the one who got the most respect.
There's that, man. We're gonna have to do a whole. We're gonna have to schedule a hip hop cultural
intelligence.
What's the title we give those? Cultural intelligence. We haven't done a cultural intelligence one in a while.
Oh well, it's kind of combined with hip hop as a science and things like that.
But, okay.
Yeah. But if the lines are cold, if your bars are whack, man, that means your lines of code is whack too. That means
that's literally what it means.
Sloppy code, man.
Sloppy code.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Okay, so the next one we do, man, we literally are gonna have to transliterate like hip hop code into algorithmic code, right? So just like how you just kind of explained it, right? Like a WAC 16 is basically garbage code.
Oh yeah.
Right. We'll have to basically write it come up with an algorithmic equivalency. Right.
Yeah,
so
but if you dropped an album, man, and it was whack, man, you got the blue screen of death, man.
There you go. See, whack album, blue screen.
And do no QA.
Yeah.
No QA.
Well, the QA, the peer review was Source Magazine back then. You know, hip hop, right? That was the peer.
On the
review.
West Coast, it was Rap Pages. I mean, we fucked with Source, but Rap Pages was the lick out here, and
Right.
it was 4,080. It was 4,080 magazine up in the Bay.
Mhm.
I think it was. I think that's what it was. You have to ask AM1.
Yeah, man. That's something that we gotta definitely do something next like that next week, man.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the new year anyway, so we gotta make sure we get up on that type of stuff.
That's
Right.
what's up.
All right, this one is from Dev. Again, getting started with Python, right? I'm not gonna read this whole thing. Recently, I sat down to get started on some Python work, specifically on Mac OS. I've written code in Python before and tried out 2x and 3x before. I'm going with 3x for this and upcoming articles, but one thing became apparent: the Python tech stack is still ferociously fragmented in a number of ways, and this post is to provide some clarity if this is your first endeavor into the stack. First off, 2.7 and 3.8 are the versions that exist in some state as the latest versions. 2.7 is obviously not the latest, but is still installed, coded in, and used in a vast number of projects where Python is used. On Mac OS, for example, it's the default still, and it should be left alone, and the latest installed with appropriate Python environment, PIP, for dependency and related ecosystems necessities. As I walk through these steps, that's important to know. I'm not going to read this whole thing, so just keep in mind, just the last couple of paragraphs. Whatever the system environment.
Hey, Mike, real quick, what was it mentioning in relation to Mac OS?
That 2.7 should be the version used for Python.
Oh, okay.
Whatever the system environment starting, check out what is on the machine. If on Windows, it's safe to bet there is nothing on the machine. On Linux or Mac OS, there will be some version of Python already installed. Running Python version or Python -- version to determine which version language is installed. If you have a version, you can check out which Python to figure out where it is installed. This can come in handy if things get a bit confusing, or verifying where the install is currently set up or pointing to within the file structure. On Mac OS, get brew before doing anything else. For details on Windows, check out the docs here. There's also a great DigitalOcean post by Lisa Tagliaferri, how to install Python 3 and set up a local programming language, a local programming environment on Windows 10. If you're installing Python 3 on Windows 10 for Linux specifically, check out these docs. Once brew is installed, issue the command to install the simple Python version management, pyenv. If this app gives flashbacks to Ruby, it is indeed forked from Arbenev. So there's that. So basically what this article is doing is it's a very hand-holding walkthrough on how to install Python to get started with development. If you want to know more about it, the docket is in the description beneath the video for you to click on. You can follow along on your personal time. I recommend subscribing to Dev2 because the site is the dopest thing for programmers I've ever seen before. I know that Stack Overflow and a couple of other sites are pretty good too, but I think that Dev2 is the shit.
I would recommend for all you YouTube junkies. So I would say check out the Free Code Camp YouTube channel.
Yep. We got Josh on the panel. We got Cocaine Kells. What's going on?
Yo.
Hi.
What's up?
Hey,
What's up, y'all?
Yeah, what it do, man?
Chilling.
All right.
What?
Hey, Josh.
What's up, Cocaine?
Yeah.
What's going on, Kels?
Hey, who is that? Complex?
Yeah.
Hey, Complex.
Hey, Majid, can you type your name in the YouTube chat? I don't see you in there. I don't know if you're going by a different name or not.
Yep, I could type my name in YouTube chat.
Yep. Josh, did you have anything you want to add to what's been said so far?
Nah, y'all did a good job covering everything, which y'all always do. But I ain't got much to add to it though.
Anything about Linux you want to bring up real quick? Developing
Nah.
on, do you develop on Linux or?
Yeah, and that's true. One thing I heard y'all read is most Linux operating systems, when you install it, it automatically has Python on it. It comes with it, so you can start coding right away. You can actually just open up create a new text file.
VI?
Name it
Vim?
Yeah, Vim or VI, or I use Nano because it's very simple, but it's the same thing. It's just a text editor for the command line. You just open it up and you can start typing Python in it, and just name the file .py and save it, and then you can type Python and then the file name, and it'll run whatever codes you wrote in there. So I mean, it's built into the OS. It's ported to OS. Python is installed. So
Manjeet, is that you, Trav, in the chat?
Oh, let me say this though, right fast. While y'all trying to find him. Also, good GitHub is a great resource. I know I didn't said that multiple times. You guys didn't said that multiple times, but there are people out there with examples of Python code already written for you. You can download their repository and just play around with their scripts, and that'll give you a good understanding as well while you're going through the training. You can see something that other people have developed, and I'm talking about just simple code. Like some people create games like the snake game or something in Python. You can see how they wrote that, and that's all written in Python, and you can actually run the script and actually play the game. And you can see how they actually built the code and what they're actually doing with the loops and the variables and setting variables, all that. You can get like real world examples of how to actually write Python. And that's just a good thing.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I think Manjeet is I think he stepped away. Let me get to this last item on the docket. This one is from dice.com. Will no code app builders mean fewer developer jobs? Oh man, this is so tiny.
Oh, vey.
For years, the tech industry has dangled the promise of no and low code app builders. And on paper, the idea is a good one. Companies get to build all the specialized apps and websites they need without the time and agony that goes into most traditional development. But no and low code platforms also raise the specter of untrained employees building messy products that don't quite work as intended. And tech professionals needed to spend time fixing their mess. Tech firms such as Microsoft position their respective no and low code builders as the perfect solution for overworked tech professionals, allowing them to focus on big strategic things while regular employees handle the work of building simplistic but necessary apps and products. For instance, Microsoft has spent quite some time pushing Power Apps, which allow citizen coders to build enterprise-centric mobile apps. Never heard of that before. Other companies, large and small, have issued their own platform, including Google App Maker, which offers a low-code building environment for custom business apps, and various startups. When you demo these products, you know how sophisticated they are becoming. With a little bit of training, even someone with no coding experience can build a relatively robust single function app. Even game development is becoming a no and low code arena thanks to Google's new game builder platform. In short, these platforms could spare tech professionals from having to juggle quite so many tasks throughout their day, but could they also put these workers' jobs at risk? After all, if citizen coders can build apps, what use does a company have for actual developers? Unfortunately, more than a few executives might make that kind of logical leap and begin reducing their number of tech professionals on staff, figuring that other employees with a bit of training can pick up the proverbial slack. Of course, this is a mistaken assumption. These no and low code platforms, although increasingly sophisticated, can't handle many of the development tasks that companies need. They also can't handle the building and maintenance of the rest of the tech stack. Indeed, most data suggests that software developer roles will only increase in coming years. According to recent data crunched by the Knowledge Academy, which provides online training courses, and Glassdoor, the United States will add more than 250,000 new software developer roles by 2026. But citizen coders combined with the rise of automation means those developers will need more highly refined skill sets if they want to land and preserve their jobs. Some people have mentioned, this is my opinion, some people have mentioned that automation would create more jobs. And we see that something like Citizens Coder may actually put some people's jobs in jeopardy at the higher level. And the other,
keep asking about that, man. Like, where the jobs are. I mean, even on the tech side, it's like, where they at though? Even right here.
Yeah, in other words, it won't be enough to grasp programming fundamentals. The most successful developers over the next decade will have sophisticated skills that can't be easily replicated by algorithms and citizen coder platforms. Oftentimes, the best job security is specialization and adopting hot new skills such as machine learning and artificial intelligence. So there you have it, citizens coders, gang. Josh, do you worry about, coding or anything like that, developing?
Not really, but I mean, I know, I guess in my job, and I believe I talked about this before, how they're trying to automate different parts of IT. And I know that's a little off topic, but it is on topic with this article because some of the easier functions that you used to have to sit back and configure, you won't have to configure anymore. And then it looks like to me, based on this article, that it looks like they're also talking about what's that, Google Stadia
Yeah.
platform, because that's
The
it
gaming
seemed like
platform.
it seemed like that's what this is tied to. While Google, the reason Google is trying to push this, but yeah, no code app builder means fewer development jobs. Some of the base level stuff when writing the code, it will be already in place in a lot of cases. So yeah, you don't have to develop from the ground up when it comes to a lot of these apps and games now. So that's the only thing I can think to add.
No, it's actually an interesting point because you're using what, Arch Linux? Back in the day, man, in order for you to use Linux, man, you had to really get into the command line. You couldn't just throw up an app, a distribution like that quickly. Back then, I remember back in the day, they used to argue back and forth. What's the best distribution? Mandrake, Fedora, SUSE. I mean, there's like 20 different versions of Linux that flavors of Linux that you can choose from, but people would argue over which one was better and which one was more compatible, which one had better compatibility. Now you don't really have that problem. You're using something called Arch Linux, which most people don't even know about.
Yep, that's true. And they still have those people that are still supporting those distributions like Linux from scratch. You can actually build your own, distribution.
Yeah, Complex has built his own Linux distribution before.
Oh yeah, I remember you was talking about it.
But that's the sort of stuff that's going on right now. And this is why we need to have these discussions, because Black people don't have to be on the outside of driving the technology now. You can actually be a part of that forefront. There's wiggle room in.
Yeah, it was Sue Studio, man. They shut that one. They shut it down. I think it got acquired by somebody and they shut it down. But you can build your own distros with it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, man. You all the way down to your user interface. You can customize it. You can make it, for a specific type of application. I mean, and this was 9 years ago, 2011. I was messing around with that because I was trying to do it to make sort of like a open source Linux distro for like tablets.
Right.
That was when like the cheap tablets were just starting to hit the market. Mm-hmm. And I was just toying around with, creating a Linux distro to load onto a tablet. I had already did it loading a Linux, like Ubuntu distros onto old PCs that I had and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you were Android before Android, right?
I was Android before Android. Yep.
Cool.
Wow. Manjin, you have anything you want to add to this?
I just want to piggyback off of what you said, just as far as making sure our people are skilled and know what's coming around the corner and be a part of the fourth industrial revolution and make some people, in our community wealthy and give people the skills. So I just think still it's just great that we're going over the stuff.
Yeah. So this is Google App Maker right here. Business apps your company needs built by you. So I haven't seen anything really come out of this because I haven't been a part of those sort of, I haven't been a part of any of these sort of endeavors, but let me see what this is. Let me open up this sample. I'm not seeing anything. It's too bad. Oh, this is the part of G Suite too. So I know Johnny Blaze talked about being G Suite certified. So that does come into play in some areas, but I have not seen anything produced off of this platform as of yet. I could be on the lagging end of watching what's going on. I'm usually at the forefront, but this is the site. So I'm going to drop that in the chat for some of you all who are interested. Manji, is that you, Mike Kim?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Okay. Is that your American name or?
Yeah, my real name is Mike. I'm a American born and raised. I'm from the Midwest. I'm living in Los Angeles. I've been out here for about the past 7 years, and I've been in like the IT space for about past 10 years. Went to school in Alabama in the South and all that stuff, and then transferred back up to the Midwest, and then moved to Chicago for a little bit. Was doing IT stuff, a little fintech stuff, and then moved out to LA. Been out here ever since.
Okay, so you're ADOS, and you're American descendant of slave.
Yep.
Oh well, we don't allow those people on our platform.
I heard, I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be non-ADOS to come on this panel.
Oh, my bad.
No, man,
and I'm saying that as a NATO's person, by the way.
Yeah. People have accused us of that, right? We hate ADOS, so we don't.
I saw some of that stuff. Yeah, that's crazy.
No.
Yeah, that was a complex starting. He's doing good today.
What'd you say, Josh?
No, I was just gonna say, hey, Maji, I might need to hit you up, bro, because I'm down here in San Diego.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, not that
Yeah,
far,
man.
man.
No, man, I'm out here too.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna
Yeah, both of y'all.
we're gonna do a Brain Trust LA meet, man. We're not
Yeah.
waiting. That's gonna happen.
We need
So.
to do a conference out here, man. Black Brain Trust. We need to set it up.
Man, look, I'll set that up, bro. I'm dead ass.
Yeah, man.
I think that'd be great. Seriously.
Yeah, man. So Citizens Coders, let me pull that up real quick. I'm not familiar with this. I haven't really delved with that as many times as I walked into Microsoft's campus here. I've never heard of them talk about this. That's not it. What is this? I've never heard of this thing, man. This is pointing me to like IPA breweries and political platforms. What is this?
What are you looking at?
I'm trying to find the Citizens Code. Oh, here it is. I found it. Okay. I'm spelling it wrong.
Citizens. Is that the name of an IPA?
Yeah, I guess. It looks like they closed the platform. So that's no longer. Yeah, that's no longer. Let me share my screen so people understand what I'm saying. I'm not just making this up. All right, this is citizencode.io. Citizen Code has closed its doors. Grand opening, grand closing. Huge thanks to everyone we've worked with and had the opportunity to serve along the way. So that's no longer going on, from my understanding from right here. However, I will say this: C# has been touted as one of the best, flexible, and most robust platforms for development at this point. I know Python gets touted a lot, but Python is a different sort of language. It's more of a scripting language than anything else. You really wouldn't do any deep system level programming, but C# seems to be that that language that Microsoft has pushed that's interoperable between the various platforms outside of Windows. So you have Linux and Mac OS and iOS as well. It can actually work on all of those platforms. And from what I understand, it's very much like Rust. But I think Rust is something that we should actually go a little bit deeper into. Let me also share my screen here. All right, this one's from edx.org. Introduction to Computer Science and Programming using Python, an introduction to computer science as a tool to solve real-world analytical problems using Python 3.5. Latest version of Python is 3.8. However, it says about this course is the first of a two-course sequence: Introduction to Computer Science and Programming using Python, Introduction to Computational Thinking and Data Science. Together, they are designed to help people with no prior exposure to computer science or programming learn to think computationally and write programs to tackle useful problems. Some of the people taking the two courses will use them as a stepping stone to more advanced computer science courses. But for many, it will be the first and last computer science courses. This run features lecture videos, lecture exercises, and problem sets using Python 3.5. Even if you previously took the course with Python 2.7, you'll be able to easily transition to 3.5 in future courses or enroll now to refresh your learning. Since these courses may not or may be the only formal computer science courses many of the students take, we have chosen to focus on a breadth of rather than depth. The goal is to provide students with a brief introduction to many topics so they will have an idea of what is possible when they need to think about how to use computation to accomplish some goal later in their career. That said, they are not computation appreciation courses. They are challenging and rigorous courses in which the students spend a lot of time and effort learning to bend the computer to their will. Yeah. No experience required. So, although the prerequisites do say high school algebra, most of you should have that if you're a thinking black man. You should be able to count on your fingers and toes for that matter. All right, let me drop this in the chat because I know people are going to be interested in this. Yeah, that's interesting. They bring up the I think it was Mike that brought up the coding for gaming. I think that's going to be a no code, low code area where people can actually dominate in these areas. We covered an article last year about a 9-year-old boy, African boy, black boy, who was building games. At 10 years old, 9, 10 years old, he's building games, and people are following him.
It's amazing. And I think, once these platforms are in people's hands, a lot of, young kids, young people, period, want to build games and, be a developer as a career. And it's just the barriers of entry coming down quickly.
Yeah, it's a part of that gig economy where you may not have to go work for somebody else. You may have to be consulted. You may build something and make a lot of money off it if it's on the App Store, right? It could be #1 in the App Store, like Tariq's game, Crispy's Biscuits or whatever that game was. And I think it was #1 in the Google Play Store for like a couple of months, man. I don't know why. I never downloaded it, but people seem to really like it, man. So
that's great. The Kim Kardashian game, the Kim emoji and all that stuff, that's multi-million-dollar stuff, it was just.
Wow, and this is coming from someone who supposedly doesn't have any talent.
Right, exactly.
Wow. And here people are, on YouTube waiting for reparations, man. I just
The richest country in the world. Yeah, sad.
So you for your daily responsibilities, are you a coder or are you involved in digital transformation, business analytics? What is it that you do?
So right now I'm a product manager. So I'm at a private equity firm. So we're doing like implementing basically we're trying to implement a new AI that can find clients, find B2B clients. Then we're also implementing a LOS system, a loan origination system, in order to streamline some of the people that are going to be handling, collecting the documents, collecting the different background, doing the underwriting on the loans and giving the money. And then we're also implementing a Salesforce CRM as a way to reach out to people, do digital marketing. When it's their birthday, send them a birthday email. When it's, just Christmas, send them a 5% off for Christmas deal or whatever. So automating all that piece of it, and then just keeping in touch with the clients and being able to grow the business that way and network and just really empower the sales team. That's one of the big pieces. So just trying to run those different applications and make sure everything goes correctly.
Now, have you programmed before? Have you written any code?
Oh yeah. So I started off as a developer, so C++ and stuff like that. But in school, I went for undergraduate for computer science, and then I ended up changing my major to political science. I ended up after that doing my master's in public policy, and then after that, I got back into IT as a business analyst, and working up through project manager. So hands-on in the code as far as being a business analyst, working in MicroStrategy, things like that. I was working at 20th Century Fox. We were building out looking at big data on new customers. So people that are mobile millennials versus older people, how to market to them, how to extract money. People in Latin America, how do we market to those specific customer segment groups? So even that doing development, building cubes and MicroStrategy, and then getting them the data, making reports on it, and saying hey, we need to market to them this way, or this is what the code is showing us. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of what I did early going, and then a lot of stuff in media. And then I got into finance.
Yeah, definitely, man. That sounds dope, man. That's a logical transition for a lot of people, especially myself, guys like Josh. We came out of those sort of areas. I think Josh kind of bounced back and forth as well. Josh, you want to speak to your experience as well?
Yeah, I started out as a network administrator, and then I did systems administration, managed a couple businesses, networks, set up one for a school, from the ground up as far as the whole network, managing the switches, routers, setting up the servers as well. So I kind of had two hats at that point. Because normally that's separate when setting up the actual servers and the applications on them
Mhm.
versus just managing the network. You guys know that, but
Mhm.
and then I kind of fell into analyst work, data analyst work, because I had a heavy background. Well, not really a heavy. I mean, everybody knows how to use Excel, but I was real good at writing the formulas and all that stuff. So that's kind of how I got into this whole database thing. This was never like a planned thing, but I just kind of fell into it,
Mhm.
and learned it on my own, and just kept getting jobs. Because when most companies, they hire you based on your most recent experience, and my most recent experience was data analyst, database management, developing as well. So I just kind of kept going in that database route. So that's how I end up a database administrator. But yeah, it's my background.
Yeah, I think I think it's important for people to understand how we got to where we got to, man. We didn't, we didn't come into the game, man, privileged, man. We had to work our way up, and I see a lot of people trying to take shortcuts to try to get to, to get to that point. And it's like, nah, man, there's a rite of passage here that you got to go through. You can't just be scaling up to the top and not having that sort of that hazing experience, so to speak, man. That's
Yep. And I actually got into IT after I joined the military. I came back home as a reservist. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I basically hopped into one of those schools that kind of scam you, Remington College, where I did the whole networking course there, and
this
it
was
was a
in
lot of hands-on training there. So
this
that
was
allowed me to get. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, was that in New Orleans?
No, it was in Baton Rouge. Baton
Okay.
Rouge.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's how I got in the door.
Mhm.
It was at the ground level. I went to that school, and there was a lot of hands-on training where so I benefited from it. I know they overcharged it, but I benefited because I actually learned how to set up servers and all that. They had a whole lab environment where you could set up and manage Microsoft servers. So that was a
Mhm.
good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you said you had to wear two hats. Was that one for Suave House and one for Cash Money?
Nah, no limit.
Ah,
No limited cash money.
Yeah, man. For me, man, I came out of the desktop area. I came into the game as a desktop person. Worked there for a few years. Did my undergrad in information security, and got into the IT analyst, network analyst side, and then I scaled into cybersecurity, and that's where I am right now.
I just want to say I really appreciate Black Brain Trust and the space being provided to have a thinking Black men together, and because a lot of times I could feel kind of siloed or alienated, and it's really great to be able to talk and have these type of dialogues and have the space available for people. So I really appreciate you guys.
Oh yeah, you're welcome, bro. That's exactly what the platform is designed for. It has expanded a little bit to include more co-ed, but for all intents and purposes, that's how you defined it and how you described it is exactly what it's meant to do. I don't see anybody else doing it. If they are doing it, they're not on our radar for that matter. So we try to actually bring this sort of content without any sort of money flying around like some other people do, because once that stuff starts going down like that, man, it's no turning back. So
It's an important resource.
yeah.
For the community.
Yeah, and it's a social resource. A lot of people say, well, some people say, well, you guys, you have too many jokes going on in there, and we can't really cite this as a source, a credible source, because there's too many jokes going on in there, man. People have to be themselves, man. We need a space where we can be ourselves, not where we can actually play by someone else's emotions and play, satisfy their emotions. That's not what we're doing. So, or
that you guys are elitists. It's not at all. People are just giving it to you how it is and giving you the facts on the ground.
Yeah, we would
call it elitist. It's crazy.
Yeah, we would call snobs. Initially, we would call snobs. Someone called Complex a business snob. You're a business snob, Complex. That's what you are, snob.
If we're not,
excuse me.
Yeah, they call him a business snob, elitist, capitalist. You don't care about the poor people. It's unbelievable how.
I mean, man, it was bad at one point, dude. I was just like, Jesus Christ, you guys really think this shit?
I thought they were going to set up, digital concentration camps and try to shove us in there, man. And, put us in these sort of get some Krylon, Zyklon B or something for us,
Boom, boom.
Yeah, and I mean, and Mike, how dare you have a sense of humor?
Oh yeah.
The hell is your problem?
You know what it is, man.
Going around here telling jokes,
making people laugh. Where they
what
at?
the hell?
It's unbelievable, man. Because some people have said, "Oh, you guys are kind of boring. It's kind of dry. It's dry education." And so we throw in the Seinfeld, not Seinfeld, the Seinfeld, satire in there, and some people get it, and some people don't, man. But that's what keeps the conversations going, man. This isn't, what is it, Richard Martin? The thing that old boy uploads every now and then. Dark Side News, Richard Martin.
I know, yep, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like that. We have a sense of humor, man. We're human, man. Why can't you respect the fact that we're human?
I mean, the thing about it, this is the reason why I think the doom and gloom part to all of this, to me, it's misguided, because I mean, we find humor in a lot of this shit, quite honestly. I mean, I think in the most idealistic setting, just as sort of like a cultural mandate, right? Where we're all technologists, and what we're talking is commonplace. Now it's commonplace amongst us, but I'm talking about like black culture at large. You know what I mean? Like being tech oriented is like a commonplace thing. Then these type of discussions and stuff like that wouldn't be over so many heads. You know what I mean? So it's like, in lieu of just making it dry and just very monotonal, and just read from the docket and then talk and then go to the next. You know what I mean? If we don't digress a little bit, we're trying to give it a humanist angle to this, especially as like thinking black men, real ones. You know what I mean? Like, we think very seriously. Mike and I text every time some breaking news shit comes on, man. We throwing text back and forth, right? Just to, put each other up on game, so that when we have these discussions, we can factor it in. Because usually, 9 times out of 10, it's something relevant to what we talk about. Now that's not to say though that, we can't kick a joke or two in the process. You know what I mean? I mean, we're real people, and there's things that we're very serious about, things that, but we also have the ability to find humor and shit too, so, that's all. It's not, if we crack a joke or something, man, it doesn't diminish what we're ultimately trying to communicate. It really doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like if you guys are joking about sports or entertainment or, celebrity gossip, it wouldn't be as much of a problem though.
Yeah. Or shit, if we just decide to just be gearheads for an evening and talk cars or something, don't expect us to be, okay, we'll be serious about like the car shit, but largely we're gonna be cracking up the whole time. So just beware.
No, they only hold us to that standard. They don't hold other platforms to that standard, man. They always
Yeah, I noticed that, man.
Everybody else gets exempt, but except for us, we have to be Wikipedia where everything is correct. And
Where are your sources? Where are your sources, Mike?
Yeah. They want us to be that black and white and dry, but then there's other platforms, they seem to get away with the sort of effery that they do. So,
well, I mean, I guess again, it kind of defies, which I've largely, thought was laughable. This notion of what a fucking lame is, and a select and a pookie and whatever titles, man. Like that shit really, you should put it in a bag and tie it up nice and neat and then throw that shit in the trash, because, expectations are meant to be defied.
Is that the same get the bag that you put in the trash?
Yeah, that one specifically. Yeah, that one.
I blame the gynocracy.
Oh, man.
Uh-oh. Really? Up until this point, Kels, I had no idea that the gynocracy was like the source of my problems. I had no idea. I thought it was just maybe just like, fucking like living life and learning from it and making decisions. And then you might make a mistake. And then from that mistake, you learn from it. And then you apply what you learn and then you better yourself. I was thinking this whole time, this is just life unfolding. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really understand that there was a fucking gynocracy that was actually the cause of all this shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's because you have a real life complex.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're good for right now. We covered everything that was on the docket. So thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you've not already done so. Share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you can get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Shout out to Mike for joining us today and contributing, as well as Josh. If you're trying to get it,
hey Mike, we're going live later too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have not, if you're trying to get into IT for the first time and you're at the entry level and you need mentorship, we do offer IT mentorship. If you're trying to transition from one role to another, we do offer IT coaching. If you are trying to have your resume looked at and have some salary or wage questions, we do offer advice in those areas. If you're in the tri-state area and you're looking for an IT contract, Nagone 11 does have Rex on the table, so make sure you hit him up. Also, we'll be back later for Black Healthcare Talk. So Black men and prostate cancer, make sure you check that out. Shalom, everyone.